tuning in to the Electric Church Podcast. My name is Craig. I am the founder of the Electric Church Podcast, and I am just going to do a little solo podcast for you this week. We are having some technical issues, which I'm hoping to overcome soon here, which is why I'm doing a solo one today. I'm working with some software called GarageBand on my desktop computer, and I was able to do a couple of podcasts with two microphones just fine, and I've had to use some different software called Dual Capture on an iPad for a couple other ones. So that's going to make those ones that are on my iPad, I need to basically, the only way I can figure out what to do at this point is to manually transfer them to my other software so that I can get it onto the movie making software on Apple, so that I can get it recorded and get it into post-production and get it into a movie and get it on YouTube. So that's slowing me down, having these technical issues. If anybody's familiar with GarageBand at all, computers are not really my forte, so I would appreciate the help. Along the lines of these audio issues, if you run the first couple of podcasts, numbered 3 and 4, if you run those through your phone, you're going to notice that the audio is kind of weird. It's playing from one channel is running through your speaker, and one channel is running through your phone earpiece. So it's going to sound kind of weird because the sounds aren't coming from the same place. So if you run that through some Bluetooth speakers or a Bluetooth headphone, that's going to make that a lot better for you. So anyways, this is, the 6th podcast I am recording, and it's going to be the third one released, and we're going to number it Electric Church Podcast number 1, Craig Solo, just to make everything extra confusing. Like I said, one of those podcasts that I recorded, two now that I recorded, I had to use some different software on an iPad instead of my desktop, and that's slowing me down. That's why I ended up numbering them kind of weird. And I have one podcast that I recorded that when I got it into post-production, I just wasn't all that happy with it. It took us a long time to sort of get a conversation rolling. So we are just going to scrap that. We'll have our guest back and see if we can't sit down and do sort of a pre-meeting and do some show prep and have a better idea what to talk about and how to move forward. So I noticed a couple of things that I want to fix. Personally, one of the things that I noticed is I tend to stumble on my words a lot more when I'm recording than I do in real life. I noticed I say a lot of like, you knows, and ums. So I'm going to try to have my sentences better formulated. The other thing I'm doing is I tend to be holding my breath while I'm talking and sort of running out of words, not being able to have a proper conversation. So I'm going to try to get used to breathing and talking normally into a microphone, which sounds odd, but I can be a pretty good conversationalist, but I'm having a hard time conversating into a microphone, even with a guest here. So I'm hoping to work on that. And going into the future with this podcast, what we want to do, the first two podcasts are very saturated in policy talk. which is, not the aim of a podcast. I don't want to shy away from it, but is by no means my intention. But I want this place to be a nice, open marketplace of ideas. So it's not just going to be an echo chamber of one side or another. Tom had openly said that he had voted for Trump, and Dave had openly said that he had voted for a third party. And the last guest I had on, Pete, had openly said that he voted for Hillary begrudgingly because he would have really wanted to vote for Bernie Sanders. So I feel like I've already kind of covered some bases on that part. I'm hoping to continue to do that, to have on guests that have different ideas policy-wise, but that's not even the point of this podcast. It's just sort of a local Brainerd community podcast. So I'm hoping to have some more and more local business owners on. The first one that we recorded with Bettina, she has a business called Core Healing, and she talks a bit about that. So again, that's on some different software that I need to manually transfer and get into post-production, and it's just gonna slow down my process. And I'm also looking for some regular contributors, some people who want to come in and talk about hunting and fishing, whatever their interests in this Brainerd area may be. We're hoping to get in some small business owners, some people that started their own business. We've got, I've been talking to a realtor, excuse me, brewery, chefs, restaurateurs, yoga instructors, repairmen. So we're hoping to bring in a wide variety of people to talk about a wide variety of subjects. And, who else? Kyle is going to be here soon from the Spitballing podcast. So it's going to be nice to have him sort of sit down and be the guest and be able to chime in a lot more than just his little quips. He can sit down and have a nice long conversation and tell us a little bit more about him and what he does at Spitballing and whatever else it is he'd like to talk about. I'm hoping to get into some stuff about weightlifting, and we can swap back and forth about our current exercise routines and diets and what it's like becoming older men and trying to stay healthy and keep going to the gym. That's definitely going to be part of this podcast, as well as my continued journey to a healthier me. I started exercising seriously and attempting a better diet 9 years ago when I stepped on the scale, and I was 276 pounds. I got a tattoo to commemorate the exact weight, and it's all been downhill from there, figuratively speaking. The scale, of course, still fluctuates a bit, but I am going to use this podcast as a way to be accountable to an entire audience and not just myself. So it's Tuesday today, and at the gym at the YMCA, I weighed in at 236 pounds, which is a little bit heavier than I am used to. I'm used to around 225 to 230. I thought I had just dropped down. I thought I just lost sort of my Christmas weight, but it appears to be lingering. I have adapted a new Diet Coke habit, unfortunately, which I think is making me a little bloated and retain some water. So I got to get that under control. I do eat relatively well, for the most part. I don't eat a ton of carbs. It's a lot of protein and vegetables. And I tend to do several intermittent fastings a week of 12 to 16 hours. Generally, I'll do at least 2 to 3 of those a week. Right now, I've done times where I've done that for a much more extended period of time, done it for several weeks at a time, up to a month of intermittent fasting, which I've had really good results with, and we might need to hop back on that bandwagon. I still enjoy the finer things in life, like cheeseburgers and pizza and candy bars, but I just enjoy them a lot less ultimately. And I go to the gym pretty regularly, and I exercise basically every single morning when I wake up. I do some stretching and I do some light exercise, just usually some calisthenics, kettlebells, a little yoga. I just kind of get up early enough to get that done, and that really helps boost my metabolism. I definitely credit that to at least helping me maintain a relatively lower body weight than I was just 9 years ago. I've lost 40 pounds, I guess, to the date. I've been lower. 219 was the lowest that I can remember in the last couple of years, and that felt really good. But ultimately, it was really just a lot of water weight, which I'm sure I could shed pretty quickly here if I got onto some sort of crazy fad diet or something. But just rambling at this point. One thing I wanted to honestly ramble about, though, before I jump out of everybody's hair for the week, is The Mandalorian. If you haven't watched The Mandalorian on Disney Plus yet, I think it is the best. I think it's the best Star Wars thing to date. I haven't read any of the novels, and I haven't seen the animated Clone Wars that's on my watch list. But as far as any of the movies, I think that The Mandalorian is actually much superior, and I am going to do a breakdown of the entire Mandalorian series and exactly why I think it's the best Star Wars filmed thing to date. I guess I'll leave out the Clone Wars and just say it's the best Star Wars filmed canon thing in existence to date. And I'm hoping to do that soon. I'm rewatching the entire season right now and taking some notes so I can sit down and do a detailed explanation as to why that's my opinion. I might do that alone. I might do that with Kyle or some other dork that's willing to sit down and discuss Star Wars for half an hour or better with me. But anyways, yeah, that's kind of what we're looking to do here at the Electric Church podcast, is have different voices discuss different topics, and have a warm, welcoming place to discuss ideas, because everything feels like a little crazy since 2016, and like people can't really talk to each other just because of some mild differences. Generally, I think we have a lot more in common than we have dividing us. And I think it's important to just be able to sit down and talk to each other about those differences and about our views on those things. Me and Pete, we probably had some feverish arguments, 3 years ago in 2016, in the election year. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I'm sure we had some pretty bitter, angry arguments. And just 2 days ago, Pete and I sat down and had a absolutely wonderful conversation, and found that we agreed about a lot of stuff, and I found that even the things that we disagreed on, we were able to discuss them in a diplomatic manner. Um, and I'm really looking forward to having Pete back on, and sort of deep dive into some of those ideas, because I just kind of let him get on his soapbox and go. I'm sure he was excited to talk about sort of his view of the world. So he hit on a lot of topics really, really quick. And I'm going to go back and listen to the whole thing when I'm going through it in post-production, and kind of pull out a few topics that we can go into greater depth about, and see exactly how far it is that, how far we agree, and if we can find some sort of middle ground, how it is that we agree or disagree on these different subjects, and just try to solve all the world's problems. But that's for future podcasts. I'm also looking to feature some veterans to come on and talk about their experiences, if any of them would be willing to do that. I would be really, really honored to have them in here to share their stories and have those stories preserved, online anyway, for as long as that lasts. And they obviously don't have to use their real name. This is an audio only podcast, so they can come in and talk about their experiences, and not feel the weight of people knowing exactly who they are. But I think it's important to hear those stories, and to hear them preserved. And I know a lot of people that have been to war don't really like to talk about exactly those things. So I know it might be a tough sell, but I'm just gonna sit here and listen and sort of guide the conversation. It's not about me, it's about Brainerd and the people in it, and that's kind of what I'm hoping this podcast is going to be. The one thing that I'm going to be bringing a heavy dose of to this podcast, hopefully, is sort of pop culture reviews. I like comic books and movies and sort of dorky things. So that's probably my biggest contribution. I'm going to have on some people that I can geek out with, for instance, about The Mandalorian. So that'll probably be next week. I'll sit down and record for about half an hour, probably by myself, maybe with somebody else, and just give a long, detailed spoiler of The Mandalorian and why it's the best Star Wars filmed thing to date. So anyways, that is going to be it for us today. Thank you for tuning in to the Electric Church podcast. This is episode 1. I am Craig, the founder of the Electric Church podcast. We're recording at the lovely Chameleon Cafe right off Highway 371 in Brainerd, Minnesota, next to Brainerd International Raceway. I think I said that already. Anyways, you can come in to the Chameleon and eat a beautiful breakfast or some tacos or a sandwich, and I'm probably going to be here to say hi to you as well. So, all right, everybody, keep the conversation going below in the comment section, and tell us some people you think we should have on, and some topics we should discuss on future episodes. Thank you again for tuning in. Have a beautiful day.